Welcome back to Hey Kentucky. We are now very happy to be joined from the SEC Network, one of the most entertaining people covering college football, our friend Booger Mcfarland. Booger, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Matt. What's going on, buddy?
We are doing well here in Kentucky. Part of the reason we're doing well is surprising to everybody. We've got a good football team. I got to ask you, considering Kentucky started 0-2, how surprised are you that they are now 7-5 and where they are?
Well, very surprised. But, when you look at how they got here, Matt, to me, that's the biggest thing. And I think Mark Stoops took over the defense and started kind of putting his input inside the defense. That's made a difference. And I think, when you look at the offense, it's amazing that we came into this season thinking Kentucky was going to be Drew Barker and the wide receivers, Bidet and Johnson and all that. They had four backs coming back that averaged over 4 yards a carry. So I'm like, okay, why don't they be a running football team? And the injury to Barker, now you put in Steven Johnson, you put that together, and the emergence of Benny Snell Jr., the ability to run the football, to me, they were almost forced to be this good. The defense was bad, the offense wasn't good. So let's go back to what we know. And what they know is running the football and Mark Stoops playing good defense. So once that happened, the ability to control the line of scrimmage in this conference is the biggest key. They started to win ball games. So I was surprised it took them this long to get to their formula. But once they got to the formula, I wasn't surprised how many games they won.
You look at Kentucky football over history. When we've been good, it's never been because we could control the line of scrimmage and run the ball. It was always because you could throw it around and be kind of gimmicky.
Right.
Isn't it surprising that Kentucky, for instance, has an offensive line that can dominate SEC defensive lines?
Well, dominate, that might be taking it a stretch.
But I mean, be able to be effective. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, dominate may be strong, but yes.
Right. No, you know what, though? Good backs can make offensive lines look really good. Kentucky has some very good backs. When you look at Snell, Williams, and Kemp and what they have from the backfield standpoint, they can make the offensive line because the offensive line doesn't have to hold blocks for 5 to 6 seconds. Just give those guys a crease and allow them to find the hole, and they can do that. But Mark Stoops, the one thing he's done, people can talk about how long it took this team to get bowl eligible and how many years it took him to do that. But the one thing he's instilled is a physical football team. And I think from a physicality standpoint, you got to give him a lot of credit for doing that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Mark Stoops. You could give the SEC Coach of the Year to Saban every year, kind of like Cal in basketball. I don't think he's won it since 2009. So let's take him out of the picture because he could win it every year. If you weren't going to give it to him, would you give Coach of the Year to Mark Stoops?
No doubt about it. I think right now there are only two candidates in my mind, Matt, and that's Mark Stoops and Derek Mason. I think what they've done with their two programs, from where you thought they would be to where they are now, I think you have to look at the job they've done. And most people doubted both of those after about 2 weeks of the season. So I think when you look at the improvement that the teams have made throughout the season, to me it's going to come down to Stoops and Derek Mason. I would give the edge to Stoops based on losing the quarterback, based on having to change your entire formula for winning mid-season. I think he's done a remarkable job there in Lexington.
Now, we went in the last game of the year against Louisville, and everything you said about Benny Snell and Boom Williams and all that was true. And then in the last game, Steven Johnson throws for over 300 yards and plays great. Were you as surprised by that as I was?
Well, yeah, I think everybody was surprised by that, especially going into that game against Louisville and Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson was the show. He's the guy that everybody came to see, and lo and behold, the quarterback that actually played the best was Steven Johnson. And I think when you look at what he does and how they run the football, when you have a good running game, the running game gives you an opportunity for a lot of one-on-one matchups. And what did he throw into on Saturday? A lot of one-on-one matchups because they can run the ball. The safety had to come down, and it's a lot of pitch and catch when you're going one-on-one. So their ability to run the football set up everything that they do. And Johnson, in my mind, Johnson has solidified himself as a very, very good quarterback. And I think that Kentucky will be smart to continue the formula going forward.
I totally agree with you on that. Now, I got to ask you, I do radio in Louisville, and so I get to hear a lot of U of L fans.
People in Louisville don't like me, Matt.
They don't. Well, that's because you said, and I liked it, you said that Louisville was, quote, Lamar Jackson and a bunch of dudes. You said that a couple weeks before the Houston game. Did you end up being right?
Well, here's what I'll say. Is that, people in Louisville thought they had a great championship football team. I never thought that. I thought Louisville had a great little offense with Lamar Jackson. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. He deserves it. He's won it on the field. But when you talk about the ability to win a championship, you have to have a stout defense. You have to stop the run. You have to be able to take away what the other team does best. And at some point, you're going to have a curveball, meaning Louisville can't just run Lamar Jackson left, Lamar Jackson right. What do they do as an alternative when someone takes Lamar Jackson away? So because of those reasons I listed, I never thought they were a championship team. And obviously people in Louisville, when I said that, oh, you're wrong. People, I mean, literally, people came at me from Louisville radio stations to Louisville media all day one day. And all I said was, you know what? I stand by what I said. So am I vindicated? Sure, there's some vindication there. But I'm an analyst, man. I look at football objectively, whether it's LSU, Louisville, Michigan, Ohio State. It doesn't matter to me. I just look at the game. And Louisville, no matter how great of a story Lamar Jackson is, they never were going to be a championship football team this year.
Last thing before I let you go. Next year, I know this is this year, but next year for Kentucky, probably their easiest schedule they've ever had. They replace Alabama with Ole Miss, so their two Western opponents are Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They get Florida, Tennessee, and Louisville at home. If there was ever going to be a year Kentucky could contend, it's next year. Can Kentucky next year, considering how much they bring back, contend in the SEC East?
Absolutely, they can contend, especially number one, because they have a formula now going forward. And Mark Stoops would be really stubborn if he went away from this formula. Run the football, shorten the games, get you a couple of guys on defense that can rush the passer. The SEC is about, you don't necessarily have to dominate the line of scrimmage. You got to dominate the point of attack. So you have to be able to dominate where the ball is going to go. And if Kentucky has a couple of guys in their front seven that can be impact players, with the way they run the football, you shorten the games. And what's going to happen when you play Kentucky is this, Matt, is teams are going to take them lightly. And you're going to get into some dogfights. And before you know it, you're going to look up, and it's the fourth quarter. Kentucky's got a 7-point lead with the ball. And now here comes Snell coming downhill. And a lot of teams are going to find themselves in that situation. So can they contend? Absolutely. I mean, Florida, if you just look around the East and say, okay, who are going to be the teams that could be contenders? Tennessee is losing a lot. Florida, I mean, they've been so pedestrian offensively. And then you look at Georgia. If Easton progresses with what they have on offense, maybe Chubb comes back, maybe it doesn't. I think Kentucky, Georgia, and don't be surprised, Vanderbilt. I think those are your three East contenders next year.
Wow, that's great. All right, last question. My producer said to ask you, how'd you get the name Booger? I don't know the answer.
I got it when I was 2 years old, man. I was a bad kid, kind of like you're a bad adult right now. So when my mom gave me the nickname, and my sister, who's 6 years older than me, she kind of heard it. And, you know, as older sisters or older siblings do, she kind of teased me with it. And lo and behold, 36 years later, people still call me Booger.
I love it. Booger Mcfarland, SEC Network, thank you very much. One of the nicest guys around. We appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime, Matt. Thanks, bud.